All right. Good morning, Keller Williams. It is Matt and Mary Beth again for a daily 11 a.m. call.
Good
Today
morning.
we will be, good morning. Today we'll be continuing with Shift Tactic 5, lead conversion. This chapter, there's a lot going on in it and a lot of information, so we broke it up into two sections to kind of let the information breathe a bit. And yesterday we talked about um, connecting, we talked about capturing, and then now the next logical step would be to closing, to actually getting the appointment and closing the appointment. And before that, one of the things I wanted to highlight that you had brought up at the end of the call, you had talked a little bit about DISC, the DISC profile, the DISC. And I
Yes.
thought as I was reviewing the rest of the chapter, I thought that's a good place to start because when we're looking at the 10 best ways to close or 10 different closing options, I think a lot of that depends on what behavioral style and what type of person you're talking to. So I just kind of wanted to take like maybe just a couple minutes to just highlight, for those of you who don't know what the DISC profile is, just an overview of what some of the different behavioral styles are. Um, so to start, um, I was thinking we'll just go through the DISC. And when I'm looking at the D is really for dominance. It's direct, it's results oriented, it's firm, it's strong willed, it's forceful. It's somebody who places emphasis on the bottom line and can be direct or straight to the point. So, Mary Beth, when you're thinking of somebody who's a high D, how does that person receive information and how does that person deliver information?
Well, that's a great question for a high D.
Like yourself.
I am a okay. So there are a couple of high Ds are very dominant. They're very direct.
Hmm.
Typically, you see a very aggressive, loud, outspoken, fast talking. There's some really great positive attributes to a D.
Hmm.
And then we also have the other side of every letter, of every behavior. And we have to remember that the DISC profile is a behavioral assessment. It does not say this is what your personality is.
Hmm.
It just reads what your behavior is like, who is likely to show up when there's a little bit of stress, when there's a little bit of pressure put on a situation. And so I know I'm dancing around your question a bit, but I wanted to lay the ground a little bit that the D and the I's are behaviors that have in common, they're fast and aggressive.
Hmm.
The S's and the C's have a commonality, they're slow and cautious.
Yep.
So if we get on the phone with somebody or we Zoom with someone and they're a little slower and they're a little more careful with their words, and they're probably showing you some traits of C and S behavior.
Yep.
If they get on like me and it's like a bull in a china shop and it's da 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 and fire, 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 you're probably dealing with a D and an I.
Hmm.
Now, the reason we're bringing this up in the beginning is listening to Gary speak and just knowing it from experience is the better you can read people and know who you're dealing with, the faster you're able to close on them.
Correct.
And in our business, and especially now, it's going to be extremely important to know how to close as fast as possible and as often as possible. And closing may mean closing to get the appointment,
Yep.
closing to get the signature, closing to get the commitment to work with me to list today. So,
Well,
as
and
I said, D's and I's have that behavior similarity, fast and aggressive. S's and C's, slow and cautious.
absolutely, and I think one thing I want to touch on there is yesterday when we were talking about the connecting piece and really listening to what people are saying. So, you ask questions, we asked those 6 good questions, and you're
Mhm.
listening for the answers and really receiving that. One of the important things with the behavioral profiles is you want to mirror and match who you're speaking with. So, if you're speaking with a high I who's very chatty and very like fast paced, like myself, I'm a high IS. You want to make sure that you're keeping up with that pace. You don't want to be like, okay, let me go
Yes.
through this next.
M-
You want to mirror.
Mirror and match. Mirror and match. Read the people, mirror it, match it. That does not mean, oh, I do that too, Matt. Oh, You play soccer? Oh, I played soccer too, Matt. It's not a me too conversation. It's just recognizing, let the client, people still always love to talk about themselves or about their situation. So if you're in a conversation, a consultation with a client, the chances are you want to let them do the talking. You want to ask great questions and you want to let them do the talking. The what questions you'll ask and how you'll ask it is going to be dictated as to what behavior style. And you may make a mistake or you may misread them,
Yep.
and it will show up and you'll know how to pivot as well. So I want to also lay the foundation that D's and C's. So if you were to draw it on a chart, you'd put a D and an I and then an S and then a C. And so the D's and the C's also have a relationship. The D's and the C's share task oriented and data driven behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so D's and C's, you can imagine you'll find accountants in those worlds. You'll find financial advisors in that behavior. On the other side, the I and the S has a commonality of feelings and emotions, relationships,
Yep.
people oriented. So in I's and S's, you'll see in nurses and teachers, consultants, therapists, I's and S's.
Yep.
You're going to find behavior in there. So now when we look at the D and the I, they're fast and aggressive. The S and the C are slow and cautious.
Yep.
The D and the C stay on the data-driven analytical mind, and then the I and the S feel on feelings and hugs and give an air hug, because
Yeah.
seven hugs a day, right? Or it gets weird.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah.
and
no.
if I were to say, if we were to put a temperature and a color to these four behaviors, your D is a very cold, is very blue. Your I is very hot, it's red.
Yep.
And then you get to the S, which is more of a warm color, a warm red, and your C is more of a cool blue.
Yeah.
Feel me?
Yeah, no, I 100% hear what you're saying, and I think what's interesting is this really ties to what we've been doing over this first 100 pages in this book, which is really the lead generation aspect. You have to look more internal and realize, okay, if I'm a high I, I'm a high D, or a high D rather, like you might be somebody that's, okay, I can make cold calls, I can call people, I want to do it. I don't care whether people say yes, no, I just want to get to the point and get it done. Whereas somebody like an S or an I, where it is maybe more feelings oriented, it can be harder for them to maybe do cold calls, but maybe they're better door knocking. Maybe they're better, building those relationships face to face. Whereas now in the lead conversion aspect, while lead generation, it's more internal, lead conversion is more, okay, listening and mirroring and matching what other people are doing in relation to yourself.
Well, let me tell you about door knocking, though.
Mm-hmm.
So door knocking and cold calling, prospecting period, is something that a high I loves and hates.
Mm-hmm.
A high I behavior loves to influence people, be around people. They're an extrovert, they're talkative, and yet their biggest fear is rejection.
Mm-hmm.
So we find a lot of high I's in our industry that want to sell, want to be with people, want to do open houses, influence sellers at the table to list today. And then the rejection part of it is what they have to know, that's a consequence, and that's something that has to be dealt with, because with great success in this business is a lot of rejection. And so sometimes if a high I hasn't learned that lesson yet, it's real easy to go, I don't want to do it. They don't like me. They're not receptive to what I'm saying. And I would just challenge that if you are that person going through that feeling, go get some knowledge. Go educate yourself in something so that you can build confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Building confidence will allow you to enjoy doing it. You'll want to do it more. We talked about this in a previous session.
Yep.
And then you'll enjoy lead generating. You have to get over it, and the fear of rejection is what's going to hold you back.
Yep. Well, so now as we shift gears to the closing piece, so the one thing that I like that Gary Keller wrote on page 98, it says the right approach to close for a meeting is the only approach. Just ask. So a lot of times we try to hem and haw on how we want to deliver the information or what we're doing, what we're not doing. But ultimately, like Gary says, just ask to meet, because ultimately people want to buy, but they hate to be sold. As he writes on page
Yeah.
99, he says people want help, but are hesitant to ask for it. So you have to help them out. You have to ask for them. They want and need you to be in charge in a caring way. And so
Yeah.
I think with that, it then shifts to where we're heading now, which is the 10 classic closes that work in terms of asking
Yeah.
for the meeting. And that's on page 100. So do you want to start covering some of the 10
Yeah,
classic closes and what that
absolutely.
means?
And like yesterday, we were on a like a private call with Ben Kinney,
Mhm.
and I just left with empathy. Empathy was a word that I took away from that. And so I want to just make sure that as we are, and especially in this time, as we are looking at sharpening our axe in maybe our closing skills, we want to be very empathetic on what are we closing, what are we closing? If we are asking our sellers and buyers or our sphere of influence to take a call with us, that's okay. But if we're asking them and we're pressing on them right now to list today, and it's not the right thing for them, we
Mhm.
also need to be very careful with what our message is.
Yep.
And yet, this is a really great time to start practicing these scripts and these closes so that you get really sharp when you can really be needing this, which I would say once the restrictions are lifted, you're going to see a lot of sellers and buyers flood the market.
Absolutely.
And so agents out there, we need to make sure that we are pre-qualifying, we're using great discernment, and then we're closing so that we can be most efficient and effective.
Yep. And
So when we go into the closes,
yep.
if you are in your shift book, it's very convenient. Page 100,
Yep.
100 are the 10 classic closes that work. And so, if I could just role play them with you, Matt,
Yep.
the first one is the hard close. So you could be on the receiving end of this and you just tell me how it might feel, right? Hey, Matt, let's meet.
Sure. That seems right. That's good.
Great. Okay, the second one is the soft close. Matt, I really enjoyed visiting with you. Would you like to get together to discuss this further? Would you like to take a Zoom call to discuss this further?
Yeah. What time?
Sure, great, 2 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay, number 3 is the direct close. Hey, Matt, can we meet today?
Sure. I don't see why not.
Guys, it's like too easy. 4 is the indirect close. Hey, Matt, would it be okay if I got some information to look over and then we could meet to discuss? Maybe send you an email, share you some information, and we could schedule a time to discuss. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Send it over. I'd love to review it.
Sure. So with that indirect close is there are tons of offers that you guys could be sending out. Would it be okay if I had my mortgage guy shoot me some information on your personal, equity, a HELOC? Would it be okay if I talked to them and then got back to you on that? Would it be okay if I sent you over that market analysis and then we talked about that? You're not asking them, will you do business with me? You're asking them, if I send you this, will you look at it? Could we discuss it? So that's the indirect part.
Yeah,
The
and I would say they kind of tie, as I'm listening to you say these, like the hard close and the direct close kind of correlate in the sense that it's a much more just, you know, here it is. Like it's, just very direct as it says. Whereas
So to that point is, who would you use that on, Matt?
well, I would use that on a high D because they just want to get to the point. They don't want
Yeah.
to fluff. They just want to say, let's meet. Sure, let's meet.
And you're going to hear that in their tempo, their tone. You're going to see that in their emails, in their text messages. You might get like a 4-word text message from a high D. Sounds great. Let's meet.
And
Whereas a high S you might get, or even a high I, oh, I'd love to, but my kids have to do this and da 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 da. And how about this time? That would tell you that that is not a high D.
yeah, and Mary Beth, the other thing too, like, and I think we can't lose sight of this, like we're doing tactic 5 in 2 steps. So we did step 1 yesterday. This is step 2. Asking for the appointment is happening after we've connected. We ask those 6 questions: the who, what,
Right.
when, where, why, essentially to get to this stage. So with some of these, like, it's not like calling somebody cold and just asking for an appointment, like, hey,
Right.
let's meet, and being like, okay. This is after we've done all of those, we've laid the groundwork with all of those questions. So realistically, the next logical step would be to meet. It's just using which one of these avenues to ask for it. But it's not
Well,
going to be,
Matt,
you know.
that's a perfect lead into the next two
Oh yeah,
closes.
go for it.
Yeah, so the next two closes, the trial close, the assumptive close, the trial close.
Mhm.
Matt, have we gone over enough today that meeting would be our next step?
Yeah, I think we've
So
covered
we've already laid
that.
some groundwork,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And then the assumptive close, because we've laid groundwork, because I've connected, I've cultivated this relationship, I'm gonna ask Matt, hey Matt, it sounds like we should meet. I'm available most times this week. So what works best for you?
Yep, let's do 2 o'clock.
Let's do 2 o'clock. Now, I was listening to a recording on Gary Keller, and he was saying that when he was an agent, this was his most successful close.
Hmm.
And I think we've heard he didn't love lead generating.
Yep.
That was not his strength. Okay, Gary Keller is a high DC, and
Hmm.
so the negative positive close is, hey Matt, would you be offended if I asked if we could meet to go over this?
No, I wouldn't be
No, like
offended.
it sounds like we've gone over enough material
Yep.
that I just, I don't want to offend you, but would you be offended if I asked you, could we just meet to go over this?
And most people are gonna
Now, what are the answers? Huh?
most people are gonna respond and say, no, I'm not offended, because they're not gonna be offended.
Well, so to his point is what they're responding to is I'm not offended.
Exactly.
Of course we can meet because I'm not offended.
Exactly.
So I really want us to think about how we could hone in on that specific one, knowing that the master, Gary Keller, used it. He was his most successful, not his most liked, not his the easiest, but it was the most successful. It yielded the most results.
Yep.
Hey Matt, would you be offended if I asked you if we could meet to go over some of this stuff? Would you be offended? Not at all.
Not at all.
Okay. And then we have three more closes. The eighth one is the take back close. Matt, I've really enjoyed visiting with you. To be honest, I'm not sure if I could help you or not, but I'd be honored if we could meet to find out. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Now, that is an absolute honest, coming from a consultative position, consultant position, I don't know. Um, that I honestly, I'm not sure if I can help you. However, I would love to meet with you to see if I can. And
Yep.
that's kind of a takeaway in that, well, some people would say, well, why wouldn't you be able to help them? Matt, why wouldn't I be able to help them if I was going on a listing appointment or a buyer consultation? What could happen?
Yeah. To your question of, I mean, really nothing by going on the appointment. I mean, you can definitely help me by providing the listings I'm looking for or houses I'm looking for from the buyer's end.
Right, right. Um, right. But what I'm saying is they're really, I want you to be convicted in these scripts, guys. You can't just say it because the book says to say it and Gary said
Oh,
it's
yes, I
successful.
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, yeah, the truth is that something could not match with me.
Oh
You
yeah.
could be yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Oh
could
yeah.
be unrealistic. A seller could be totally unrealistic on price.
Yep.
We could not match up and have the same expectations on commission.
Yep.
We could not match up and have the same expectations on time or marketing strategy. And so there is a chance that we could meet and we could go over this, and I'm not a match for them.
Yep.
They're not a match for me, or what they're trying to accomplish really isn't something that I can meet their expectations, and I'd rather let them down now than disappoint them later.
Absolutely, and I think that's also where he, in the book, it goes on to talk about the importance of having a role-playing partner, and that's really in the next section 102 and 103, which is really Gary would do that every day for 30 minutes, and to your point, because I misinterpreted what you had asked the first time, is really just get through all the different answers that you could possibly get from something. Like if you role play, you know, Gary said he would walk into a room with this guy, I think his name was Tim, and basically they would just start and just rifle off objections, or rifle off, no, I'm not gonna, I'm not ready to meet yet, or oh no, like, I just want to think about it, and just kind of work through those objections. because ultimately I
50 times, actually. He said he would go over it 50 times before they would let up.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Diana Kokoska said one time when I went to one of her trainings, and it's not necessarily specific to this, but it was that she would practice, and listen and say, okay, what are the most common objections I'm getting? What are the most common things I'm getting? And she would actually handle those up front, so that way, like when you're connecting with people before you're even asking for the appointment, think about some of the objections that they're going to be asking, and think about some of the objections that may come up. So you're already handling them before you even get to the stage of asking for the appointment. Because as I said yesterday, NAR said that I think it was 66%, so about two-thirds of people will only interview one person. So
Right.
if you connect and you answer the objections up front, you're going to get the appointment, and then you've got a good shot of getting the listing or the
That's
buyer.
right. That's right.
So do you want to did we do the tie down close?
Yeah, so number 9 is the tie down close, which, Matt, wouldn't it make sense for us to meet the next day or so? Now, I'm asking you to make that decision, right? I'm not making the decision. I'm asking, wouldn't it make sense?
Yep. Yeah, if it's more control on
And
the person.
yes, and then 10 is the alternate choice close.
Yep.
What works better for you? Meeting today, sometime this afternoon, or tomorrow afternoon? And you should always be giving people two options.
Yep.
Today at 2, or is a 9 a.m. slot better for you? Are you morning? Are you afternoon? You have to do the thinking for people sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you ask for what you want, your chances at getting it are nil. So
Yeah.
as to the role play partner,
Yeah.
Matt, you were talking about is Gary just says, why are you guys going to just screw it up on live patients?
Yeah.
Even surgeons work on cadavers to practice. So what makes us any different than we go out there and we're practicing our medicine, which is, educating buyers and sellers on whether they should be listing and buying and at what price and the marketing strategy. And yet we go and we practice on live people.
Yeah.
And then we don't think about what the consequences are for them or for us in our business if we do mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that's very valuable, and I think with that, so the next part of the chapter that I just want to kind of go over real quickly is just saying that there's going to be some people that aren't ready or willing to meet yet. Maybe it's just not the right time yet. It doesn't mean that they're not still worth pursuing. So it's important to capture, connect, and then rather than close, you're going to cultivate and then you're going to close them. So to make sure that you put them on a follow-up program. So in our world, I know Kevin, I believe, is doing a class on smart plans either this week or next week on when you're connecting with people, how to put them on a drip campaign, how to create neighborhoods, which I did a class on yesterday and posted that on Facebook. So there's different programs to plug these agents into, but it's important not to forget about them and to make sure you're cultivating those relationships for when they are ready.
yeah, now more than ever, I think the cultivate part, you may not be able to, you should absolutely be able to close to a Zoom appointment.
Yep.
To take a phone call, to take a 15-minute call. Don't set the expectation that it's going to be an hour-long conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But you should be able to generate a 15 to 30-minute conversation with people because they're home. And if it's something that they were interested in, why not talk about it now, even if it is going to happen in 6 months? You may not list, you may not buy, but let's talk about all the questions that you might have. To your point before about Diana Kokoska, you're framing the objection in the beginning. So, Mr. Seller, I know that you would have some fears around listing and exposing your home to, people right now. I know that is not what you are looking to do. And so what I'm looking to schedule is a conversation about what it will look like about when you do go through the process of a contract when we do hit the market. So would it make sense for us to meet at 2:00 today to discuss those things?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That you guys can have these kind of conversations with anybody and everybody who is thinking about selling in 2020 right now. The concern, and this is why you should be having these conversations, the concern is when this lifts, will the prices continue to rise, or will we start to have some distressed properties come on we had a conversation with our ALC this morning, our Associate Leadership Council, who do a nice bit of our business in the market center and are very powerful players in our marketplace. And, you know, we're looking at a fallout of more than half of the listings that were going to come on are not going to come on until after this is, because it's just not, they don't need to.
Yeah.
So anyway, I lost my thought.
No, you're good. I think, you know, just tying back, like after you talked about Diana and we're working on handling the objections, converting the appointment, some people we may need to cultivate. One of the things that just,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of where they are in the process, you need to have an organized database. So in our world, KW Command is super easy to use, super easy to keep in touch with people. I love the story that Gary had on page 105 and 106. When he first started in the industry, he had a box in his car essentially, and he had the letters A through Z in there, you know, as like headers. And basically, when he would meet somebody, he'd have put them in last name, you know, email, contact, and well, maybe not email back then, but contact information, phone number, and then he would also have a separate section where it would have January through December, and essentially he'd put the people in, like if you needed to call someone in February, he'd be in the February pile. Like if you needed to follow up again in February, he'd keep that person in February. So each day he would go through and see who he needed to reach out to. So it's less about what system you're using. It's just making sure you have a system that works for you. And that's what worked for Gary. And I know a lot of agents in, you know, our office, you know, have been reaching out to me about organizing a database, especially now. Teresa, she was just saying on the ALC call, I think you were still on it at that point. She was saying that she's been spending hours just organizing her database so that way she's in that first mover position once things do unclog or unlock, and then she's going to be ready because she has her database organized.
Absolutely.
So
it says after lead generation, lead conversion is the most business critical activity you must master.
Yep.
So the lead conversion for now is going to be getting them into your system and then having a touch system, systematically touching these people so that they do choose you when this lifts. Or if there comes a time where they absolutely, you know, the situation changes, you know, not to sound morbid or crazy, but it's, the situation is changing every day. So if there's people in your pipeline, you want to be in weekly contact with them so that they know that you're there regardless if their situation changes or not. To your point is going back to the MREA models.
Mm-hmm.
In the lead generation model, we talk about two things. It's an 8x8 and a 33 touch. There's also a 12 direct that's built into the 33 touch. They have changed the 33 to 36. And so I just want us to revisit those when you get a chance in your MREA, your Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Mm-hmm. It is 8 touches over 8 weeks, over 8 days, over 4 weeks, whatever the time frame should be. Mm-hmm. Compared to what the type of lead is. If they're going to be moving in that next 30 days, it's going to be 8 touches over 8 days, and then you'll be sending them something else regularly. So 8 touches over 8 weeks is your typical plan. Adjust as necessary. And a 33 or a 36 touch is for your sphere of influence, and just make sure they're getting something monthly and maybe a second or third piece during the month. A call, a text, and so we can revisit that after we finish the shift series.
Absolutely, yeah. Once we're done with this, we can head into the MREI.
Yes.
Well, good. So I think today on this call and yesterday, Shift Tactic 5, we covered how to capture, connect, and close, which was the main points of this chapter, and then also a little cultivating as well. Tomorrow, we'll be doing Shift Tactic 6. Which is pages 109 to about, like, I think 132 or 133. I did skim a little of it. There's a lot of content, so we may split it over 2 days again. We may not. So just read the whole section. We'll kind of see how the conversation goes tomorrow. And then, like I said, we'll either do half of it tomorrow, half of it Thursday, or we'll do it all tomorrow. So we'll just kind of play that by ear.
That's right. And if you found some value in this, we will be posting this recording out to our YouTube channel so that even those that are not on social media can be able to view it and use it. So we
And all
ask that you use this.
and all of our videos are there, so the playlist is there. So if this is your first one that you've tuned into or watched, we have agents catching up all the time. So feel free to watch all of our videos and catch up to date.
Okay. Well, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, see you tomorrow. Thanks, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Bye.